All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Scott Loia podcast. I'm your incorrigible host, Scott Loia, and today we got a great guest for you today, Frank Pallotta, who's going to be running for state assembly in the GOP 39th district. Thanks for joining us today, Frank.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I don't get up to Franklin Lakes that often, so this is great. Thank you.
Well, Malawa's not too far.
Malawa's not too far. It's on the other side of the highway, though.
What's the name of your company again?
Steel Curtain Capital is my LLC, but running for office is a full-time job. It's a mortgage advisory business. That's how I kicked it off about a decade ago, where we started out by helping veterans who were struggling through the financial crisis.
Oh, okay.
And that was the impetus for me to move into doing something bigger and better for more people. But Steel Curtain Capital was really about bringing together government-based solutions to mortgage default to the consumers who needed them. And
consumers who were defaulting on their mortgage?
Defaulting, or better yet, who did not yet know that they were in a position to default. And that was the magic of our program that we won a Time Magazine award for.
Okay.
In 2010. But we had an algorithm together where we were able to predict who would be in trouble. And we preemptively came to them at no cost to them with some sort of a mortgage or financial solution. And we lowered default rates in the group that we were working with against a sample by about 55%. So very successful. It's why we won the award that we did.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
And how's the economy affecting that now? I'm assuming there are a lot more people defaulting on their mortgage these days.
You know, it's funny. We're almost right where we were. Default rates on FHA mortgages now are at where they were at the peak of the financial crisis, for slightly different reasons. But you can tell from spending, different spending trends that we are. And obviously the stock market today, at one point, I didn't see where we finished, but it was down 1,000 points at one point. So, you're seeing the effects of what people fear might be the early signs of a recession, and people are reacting accordingly.
Okay. You liking what's going on now with Trump and everything? Like,
I do. I like the policies. I think sometimes his language and his style rubs people the wrong way. I'm from Queens, New York. I get it. I've heard that voice for 50 years, not just his, but people who are like that.
We're a little more used to it.
We're a little more used to it. I get it. I hear it. But Trump endorsed me when I ran. And
I saw that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was I got that call while I was in a butcher shop in Westwood campaigning. And when you get a call from the Oval and you kind of think they're kidding you, and but it was part of the team that told me that he was endorsing our candidacy for Congress, and I still get chills when I think about getting a call. But and the chief of staff, I think it was the chief of staff, he said, "Look," I said, "Why? Like, why me?" And his first reaction was, "Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, but why me?" And
why not?
And he said, "Look, you're from Queens. He's from Queens. I had come from Goldman Sachs. I spent 13 years there. His team was from Goldman Sachs, including Steve Mnuchin.
Keep talking.
So it was one of these things where." There was a connection with him and my campaign. And I was flattered. I think it was great. But, to answer your question, I do like the things that are going on. He's starting to look at the economy and the country and the processes like a business. And you have to look at the country like a huge company with 335 million employees. And that's
right.
How you have to run it.
So you're a finance guy. You're in the Wall Street world.
Yeah.
What do you think about what he's doing with the tariffs and the way he's, kind of strong-arming Mexico and Canada? Canada especially.
Look, we have to take a look at tariffs in the early stages of what we're doing now. They're negotiating tactics.
Right.
And, what Canada and Mexico and the United States are supposed to do, what the United States is trying to do, what Canada and Mexico should respond with is what is in the best long-term interest of their countries. That's why Trump is doing this. I suppose many of these tariffs will not go into effect or go into effect to the degree he's saying it. He's looking to bring people to the table. That's what we don't get in politics, Scott, mostly, is the ability to sit down and negotiate. Politics is very divisive, and Trump is a businessman. And you can't negotiate until you bring people to the table.
I'm on the same page with
Yeah.
you. That's the way I see it. I just wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of like almost like a phantom tactic. I'm not sure that it's a direct strong arm, towards Canada, so to speak.
Right,
Let's just
right.
use Canada, for example, not Mexico. But I think there's an ulterior motive there. I think he's trying to even the playing field
Yes.
against China, because China is. You're nodding. You already see where I'm going.
I
with it, right?
know where you're going. This is a global game of chess that he's playing. This is not Mexico and the United States and Canada. This is a global game where China is the elephant in the room. And you're going to see it on different energy policies where, you might start, we could talk about it another time, but everything is about how the chess pieces move on a global scale. So you're exactly right.
When you talk to people, are they afraid of that?
Are
they afraid of what he's doing because they're afraid, like the cost of living, cost of goods, cost of products, all those things? They'll always use the example, my iPhone next year is going to cost me $2,000.
Right. Or look at eggs or things like that.
Do you hear it?
I do. In the political world, when I hear it, people are worried. People definitely are having, issues. It's tougher to make ends meet. You look at the grocery bill and you buy less food for more money. That's a real concern for people who have to look to leadership to make their economic world better. When you talk to people in the finance world, and while I haven't been on Wall Street a number of years, I still talk to a lot of these folks, and they get it. They don't think he's, it's purely a ploy, but it's a means to an end.
I think it's because they're more immersed in that world.
Right.
So, it comes more naturally for them to understand.
Right.
They're reading the news about the companies, what they're going through.
And, Scott, I've lived through multiple cycles, economic cycles. I spent 13 years at Goldman, a number of years at Credit Suisse, and I retired from Morgan Stanley. My first introduction, I'm going to age myself. I wasn't on the trading desk at Goldman more than 10 months when the 87 stock market crash hit. And I looked around the floor and it was like a bomb went off. And I thought this was the end of the world. And a year later, the market was back, everything was fine, and we were moving forward. There were some changes that went into place, but between, all the different crises, there was the technology boom bust, there was the Russian crisis, there was the financial crisis. Everything goes up and down. It's just a question of why they go up and why they go down. And that's how you put yourself in a position to say, is this coming back? If it does, how does it come back?
But how do you communicate that to the layman, to the common guy, the one who's not working on Wall Street, who's how do you communicate that to them? Like after you speak to them, do you find that like maybe you've calmed their nerves? Like, do you get them to come on board, or is it?
Well, when I'm talking to people, just about what I represent and who I am. My time on Wall Street was in sales, and I thought I did a really good job. I guess 30 years, I did a pretty good job. I did a really good job at communicating to my customers who wanted to know what Goldman or Morgan Stanley was doing. And I did it in such a way that they got it, whether they were, smarter, more sophisticated,
okay. You got to dumb it down
or
sometimes.
less. Yeah, you do. And you know what? Like I said, I went to St. John's. I wasn't an Ivy League guy.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself at Goldman. I did real well. I was around very smart people that I learned from and not so smart people that I also learned from. And the common link through all of this, Scott, is when you're a good communicator, a lot of doors can open up for you. And I was in a position where I was in the world of high finance, but I knew, to your point, I knew how to dumb it down to talk to people like me who got it. So in politics, when I talk to people about policies, I use the same mindset. There's too many politicians that talk in circles, and I hate talking in circles. You need to have a customer and a voter look at you the same way. You want to see when the customer, I was successful where a customer said, I understand what you're selling. I get it. Let's do a transaction. Let's do a trade. Let's work together. A
Right.
voter, if they understand they like what you're saying, the reaction is supposed to be, I'm going to vote for this guy.
Right. Actually, I think that's one of Trump's better tactics. People complain about his language, but it's easy for them to understand.
Look, when you're New York, New Jersey, California, a lot of people don't like that. But I got to tell you, the guy won every single swing state. He did because he's a good communicator.
Oh my God,
and when
wasn't it
you're
so awesome?
the billionaire New York real estate developer, and in 2016, he was the underdog. He was the guy that, that people felt sorry for because he was being bashed by the... It's tough. It's a tough world getting that point across. But like I said, if you catch the people and you got to catch lightning in a jar, which he did twice.
He did.
It worked.
I think he did it 3 times, right? He's like a blue collar billionaire. Like
That's exactly.
I think that's what Mark Levin
Yep.
coined it as, he's a blue collar billionaire.
Right.
And,
Right.
he definitely had his finger on the pulse of the people. They got it. But, he uses that language and it's easy for them to understand.
Yeah.
But he does talk a lot of outlandish stuff. And lately, ever since he's gotten in, so it's been like just over a month.
Yeah.
He's talking about Greenland. He's talking about, Canada should be the 51st state. He's
Right.
talking about the Panama Canal. What the hell? That's ours. We're taking that back. Just stuff like that. What do you think of that? Because when I hear that stuff, I'm just like, well, he's not saying that that's going to be America policy. I almost feel like he's very smart. I do believe that he really wants Greenland.
Yeah.
I think strategically, from a military standpoint, we definitely need that, against Russia and other things. We can get into that or not. But with the other stuff, like, we're going to annex Canada. I don't think he even used that word. He was just saying, Canada, the way, they treat us and everything we're doing for them. It's like, why aren't they part of our country? So he says something like that. And then people run away with it in the news,
right?
And they blast him for it. But sometimes I just think that he throws these bombs out there, like these crazy ideas. And he just wants to see what sticks, like throwing spaghetti at the wall. What are the people going to get behind? Oh, they're getting behind Greenland. Yeah, definitely. Let's do this. You know what I mean?
He was like that I never met him at Goldman, but he did a lot of business at Goldman Sachs. And the people who did business with him did business with his people. The one thing I will say about Trump is he does surround himself with smart people. His first Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, was a Goldman guy. And I worked with Stephen, and Stephen was brilliant. And Trump surrounds himself with loyal people, smart people that want to make sure that he gets the credit. And that's not a good or a bad thing. That's the reality. And
they know who they're dealing with.
You got
to kiss the ring.
He would walk in and it would be, I wasn't there, but there was a conference room at Goldman and he wanted financing for some hotel he was building in Atlantic City. And he would pound the table and he would say, this is what I want and this is what I got to have. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to go to Lehman or Bear Stearns or Morgan Stanley, wherever I'm going to go. And he would leave the room and he would tell his guys, all right, get this done with Goldman. And he wanted to do that. He wanted to be the boss. He's the boss. But he surrounds himself with enough people that he could
the alpha amongst the alphas.
Yes.
He really is.
Yeah.
I hear that from everybody.
Yeah.
What about getting rid of the DOE, the Department of Education? What do you think about returning it to the states?
Well, look, there's nothing in our Constitution that dictates education is not mentioned in our Constitution. So should it be at the state level? I think it should. I think the state, my personal view, the state can operate more efficiently and more effectively if it was at the state level. That's my personal view. There's levels that you have to go at the federal level. The Department of Education is only 41 years old or so. It's not like, it's been around 100 years.
I think Jimmy Carter initiated it.
Jimmy Carter, right. That's right. So he's taking a look at everything in Washington and everything across the country the same way you and I on Wall Street would have taken a look at a company we wanted to buy. And you rip through the 10K and the annual report and you say, what would I change? What would I do? You find out what's working, what's not. Where are we making money that we can make more? Where are we losing money that we can lose less? And I think he's looking at redundancies in a company and in a country the same way. Well, if part of what's going on with the with the Department of Education is happening and being executed at the state level, but some mandates are coming down from the federal level, it's a question of, is it more cost effective and time efficient and economically feasible to remove that and move it at the state level? So that's where I think he's going. I don't know enough about the quagmire that is the Board of Education to know whether it'll make sense. But like I said, he surrounds himself with enough people smart enough to know that if, as you walk through the plan, it doesn't look like it's going to execute well, he'll step away from it.
I don't know. I'm a little bit in tune with it. I'm on the Board of Ed. Okay.
Yes.
For my district. But I always thought that it should be brought back to the states. Honestly, to be honest with you, actually even worse than that. I'd almost like to get rid of the state departments of education. Okay. I don't think that they do a good idea.
Yeah.
a good job at all. I'd rather have like criteria, like our kids need to be able to achieve this and be proficient in this at this level by this year. And this, and some sort of test, but
you could make the argument. I don't disagree with you. You could make the argument though at the state level, do you need some measure of oversight? Like I think we do. And I came from an industry that was highly regulated.
Not wrong.
But over-regulation cuts back on innovation.
Not wrong, but this is the problem. So I was thinking about it because I do want it. I do want it returned to the states. But now I'm thinking, okay, now we get what we want because Trump is going to do that. He is going to abolish it.
Right.
But where do I live? I live in freaking deep blue, New Jersey.
Not as deep as you think, but yes, we live in blue New Jersey.
You're right. I'm praying to God we're going to flip it this time.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have a damn good chance of doing that.
As good a chance as we've had in a while.
Around Trenton, they're swarming blue. Okay, and Phil.
Oh,
Murphy,
you mean from a legislative standpoint?
Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right.
So,
you're right.
And the DOE, like themselves, it's all blue. You should see the indoctrination that I got to read. Okay, and some of the things that come down and we're forced to teach, whether it's in policy or this and that. 5756, that trans policy, that was one that we abolished it, but and that was a fight. Yeah. That was a fight, but the state was also, they were really trying to force it on the schools and the boards. So that was my concern. Well, if he gets rid of it, now now what am I going to have? Right. Because Phil Murphy's the governor, and DOE is all blue. So what happens now?
Right, you jump from the frying pan into the fire. I hear you. We've got to.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But we've seen not so much a sea change, but a real change in the way people. The 2024 election, and in the 6 months or so leading up to it, you really started to see, a lot of Dems and unaffiliateds start to scratch their head and go, why are we not thinking about this? Why are we not doing this? You know what? Joe Biden, was weekend at Bernie's and had been for years. And when people started to realize that, not only do they, sit back and say, okay, now we know he's incompetent, they're more angry that the wool had been pulled over their eyes for 4 years. So now you start to question everything. I question everything. You have to, except my wife. But I question everything. And it gives you practice to know what and how to talk about things. Right. So I agree with you. We might be frying pan into the fire, but I think we're a smarter country as a result of the 2024 elections, irrespective of what the Democrats think.
You know what? As much as mad as I was about 2020, it's almost like, thank God. Because they're just coming out with a flamethrower right now. It's the way they're doing it. It's unbelievable. It could
not be better. Like, I got to tell you something. I could not have scripted that. Wasn't a State of the Union, whatever they decided to call that. Could not have been scripted better to make them feel foolish. And I will tell you, the people who he has around him now, Susie Wiles is a rock star. That's his chief of staff. Yeah. And she's from Bergen County, Saddle River.
Oh, she is? I didn't know that.
And his other campaign manager or co-lead general consultant is a gentleman by the name of Chris LaCivita. Okay. Chris was my campaign manager in my 2020 primary. My campaign manager, my general consultant in my 2022 race. So I know this guy, and I know that these are no bullshit guys about what they do. And I don't think he does anything now, seriously, without consulting with a small group. What to say, how to present it. Is it presented in a certain order? How do you do it?
But he's way more polished.
Yeah.
People definitely like that now. They see Trump 2.0. They definitely like it better. Yeah. Definitely more polished. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Just something stupid I saw in the news today. I had to bring it up and ask you. Okay. Dylan Mulvaney. You know Dylan Mulvaney? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this clown, I call him clowns. Uh-huh. Okay, it's International Women's Day. Yeah. And he is promoting his book about becoming a girl. Yeah. Your thoughts on that? I'm sorry. It's so stupid.
I know.
Every time I look at this kind of stuff, it freaks me out.
It does. Look, you can be and do whatever you want, be whoever you want, identify with whatever you want. I don't care. I really don't. What I do care is when you tell me I have to treat that situation as some sacrosanct move. I don't. You want to be it? That's fine. As far as I'm concerned, every day is Women's Day.
Especially when you're married.
Especially when you're married. But I saw that as well. I don't know what the game is. If that situation happened 5 years ago and you presented it to a group of 10 people, only 1 or 2 people would have your reaction back then. Now, I think 8 people have that reaction.
Did you see the quote unquote women in the audience?
No. Uh-oh.
They're dudes. I mean, there's some women
Right.
are there, but they're
Right.
dudes. And that's what I don't understand. Like, what do women want? Seriously, what do they want? Like the feminists, they're shooting themselves
Yeah.
in the foot. I feel like I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you supporting this kind of behavior? Why are you supporting men in women's sports
Right.
and stealing all these accolades away from you guys? You
Right.
want to go back to the kitchen? Okay, you want to start sewing clothes again or
I
making
don't-
sandwiches? What is the deal?
Look, I
It's
think
very strange.
Yeah, I think part of it is, and unfortunately, it's the litigious and politically toxic world that we live in now. It doesn't matter what one side says; the other side's going to be on the other side of it. Doesn't even matter. I am sure if in Trump's inaugural speech he said he would favor men and women's sports, the left would jump up and down and say, "Aha! They need to
Probably
get
right.
out of women's sports." It's just wanting to be on the other side. And look, once he took the White House and again took all 7 of the swing states, I think that woke everybody up to say, you know what? Now we have to think about what real common sense solutions look like. Not Democrat or Republican, true life common sense solutions. I agree with you. Why are we talking about 13 different genders? Why are we talking about, again,
I don't
do whatever
understand.
you want. Do whatever you want. Be whoever you want. Don't force me to live through that. So,
Well, that's what people were complaining about for such a long time. They would be like, stay out of my bedroom.
right,
But now they brought the bedroom into the public forum.
right.
And
That's why you need a decorator, by the way.
and again, to your point, what you're saying, that no matter what Trump says, they're just going to
They're
do
going to be on the
opposite.
other side.
Well, that's what they did during that congressional address
Sure.
last week.
Yeah.
They shot themselves in the foot. They
Yep.
couldn't even stand up for a kid with cancer.
I don't know the answer to this. I am sure, and
It's a disease.
the
It's a
Dems and the
contagious
Republicans.
disease.
Oh yeah, the Dems and Republicans. They all knew that something was going to happen during that address, and they talked about everything from walking out to noisemakers to what Al Green did to the signs. They had a whole list of things, and I am sure that Trump's team got together and prepped him for all that could happen. And the way you did that, in my opinion, the way you do that, all the issues that President Trump talked about in that address, the full 2 hours and change, every one of those had an approval or a positive following by more than 70% of the country. So I think the structure was, we're going to talk about things that Republicans agree with, unaffiliates agree with, and a good slice of Democrats agree with. So when they do what they do, all your moderate Democrats, all your on the fence independents are going to go, wow, how do you not stand for a kid with cancer? How do you not stand when a woman was almost paralyzed by, a man in a woman's sport? And they did it because their agenda was, let's make this guy look foolish. Let's come out against this guy without listening, without reading the room. In sales, first thing, know your customer, read the room.
Yeah.
They didn't read the room, and now they suffered as a result.
I don't know if it's reading anything anymore
Yeah.
because his branding is pretty simple. It's common sense.
Yeah.
The brand is common sense,
Yeah.
and common sense is going to get him every time. I mean, they just shot themselves
Yeah.
in the foot.
Right. Look, you even get Republicans
Segment
that
after
would
segment.
kind of, stand on the sidelines and really not to say, yeah, they're not jumping up and down saying he's the greatest president the world has ever known, but he comes up with his team with common sense solutions and America first solutions. I'm a big fan of that. I'm not, an isolationist world. We have to be a player on the world stage, but it's got to be us first. From our veterans to our citizens to everyone else, it's us first. We can't be the police department for the world, but the world has to know that we will stand up for what's right.
I like that. All right, let's move on to next segment. Something else I wanted to talk about that I saw everyone was showing me over the weekend, and then I want to tie it into something else that's
Mhm.
happening here locally.
Sure.
So across the country, you have all the anti-Semitism and the anti-Israel protests going on at
Right.
the American universities.
Right.
Okay, this weekend it was Columbia.
Right.
They arrested some guy. Did you catch this?
I did not. Well, I know what's been going on, but I didn't see specifically with Columbia where someone was arrested.
Right. So ICE agents, they arrested some anti-Israel activist who led protests on Columbia's campus. He'd been doing this for months. He's not a student. I forget whether he was,
Right.
but he's not a student. They arrested him supposedly.
Young kid, give or take.
He's not a kid. He's obviously older. I wouldn't say too old. Maybe around 30. Maybe late 20s.
That's
early
a baby
30s.
to me, just so you know. But yeah, not a college age student.
No, not college age. But hey, look, maybe it could be. You know, like we just had Aiden on last week. Look what Aiden did. Aiden put on such a performance.
Yeah,
man.
no, he's
that
good.
Trump rally was unbelievable.
Oh my God.
He organized like
It was terrific.
900 people. It was great. Okay, so you have somebody on the flip side.
And he came in dressed like Fetterman, which I thought was awesome. He's a good kid.
That. He is a good kid.
Yeah.
All right. So in this case, you have somebody on the flip side.
Right.
Okay. Causing a lot of agitation
Right.
on campus. What's your take on that? Because there's a balance of freedom of speech.
Right.
You know, we need to balance that into the
Right.
equation. But there's also the other side. We do have a group of people that are being targeted.
Right.
And in some cases, you know, things get a little out of hand.
Sure.
And I would say it's a form of violence, a very low form of violence.
Right.
But if you're not allowing them to move, if you're not allowing them to,
Right.
okay, this is now it's getting physical. You're not just getting a permit out there, you know, to
Right.
raise a sign. You're taking it to next level,
Sure.
and people are wearing masks and the what's it called? That salt and pepper scarf. I forget what it's
Yeah,
the
no,
thing
I
about
know.
the face.
Right.
They're covering
Their face.
Yeah. So,
And it's not a COVID mandate either, just so you know,
Right.
covering their face.
well, it's troubling.
Mhm.
I don't like to see it. People know I am Jewish. So this is something that is hitting a little hard for me. I'm not like most people
Mm-hmm.
in my camp that are just reactive
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, because I am an American first. Okay. I'm not Israeli. I'm
Sure.
American first. Okay. For me, it's like you got to defend the Constitution.
Sure.
Freedom of speech is
Right.
very important.
Yep.
Okay. And the Second Amendment to defend that First Amendment, very important.
Right.
Okay. So what's your take on that?
Okay. The first activists that we saw in the country were dumping tea over the side of a boat. And, you know, you look at our founders, you know, they were much younger. They were half my age, maybe a third my age. I don't remember. But, you know,
Half my
these
age.
were young kids. You would almost say college-ish age people. So between, like you said, our First Amendment rights that allows us the ability to protest, the ability to gather, and that in that age, in your 20s, you're kind of finding where you want to be in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. I get that. However, you have to work within the confines of our Constitution and the law. And if someone is feeling threatened, especially these days, it's got to be taken seriously. And when someone wants to get up there and protest with a megaphone, I get it. Say what you want, I get it. You know, there's limits. You can't yell fire in a movie theater, things like that. But when you put a mask on and all of a sudden you're this close to physical violence, these days you have to be careful about that. And I think there's got to be, you know, and unfortunately you're seeing it more anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. But, you know, there's other, look, people are being attacked for their feelings. It wasn't 5 years ago where you couldn't wear a MAGA hat. You know,
Right.
even in a
Well, you still
Republican
can't.
stronghold.
You think it would be a good idea to wear a MAGA hat in New York City by yourself right now?
You know what? Well, you know, there aren't that a lot of people in New York City.
I mean,
was
I
there
do.
the other day.
I would, you know, but I'm a different animal, Frank.
You are.
Yeah,
I've seen
no-
your arms.
no-
Look at mine. I can't wear a MAGA hat. You can.
I'm not that big. I'm tiny.
Yeah,
But-
compared to me.
Hey,
But you have to answer your question. You've got to work within. You work within the Constitution and our Bill of Rights. First Amendment is pretty clear. but the law is pretty clear, and we see how people take it. And I just think you have to be more diligent. It's, almost like you're watching your kid take a step in the street. You're not going to wait till a car is coming before you go and grab him. You're going to try and pull him back. You're going to try and make him understand these are the steps you need to go through. It's not an easy job, I think, for our police to police things like this. But, some would say our protest caused an end to the Vietnam War. Some would say the ability to protest. There's other protests that escalated things the wrong way. But, I think everybody needs to feel some sense that they can go out and protest what they think is wrong, but they also need to feel safe and secure. And it's a tough balance. I'm a big supporter of our police, and they do not have an easy job in trying to police this.
Well, let's take Colombia, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, that's a sticky situation. I'm really happy that Trump pulled the federal funding from them.
Agreed.
I hope that follows through because they really need to stick it to them. So when you have a university, an institution that's been there for ages, okay, and you're not protecting your students on campus, or refusing to because maybe I don't know what it is, maybe you sympathize or you're afraid of backlash from the other group of students, or whatever it is. I almost tend to think, because I don't understand how the university can take a look at what's going on and say that that's okay.
That's okay. I agree.
I
agree.
If it's not okay, they should be calling the police. They should be calling the authorities. If the authorities locally in Manhattan can't handle it, bring in the National Guard, something. But you got to make an example out of one. Otherwise, it starts to snowball.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened. So I'm really glad Trump did what we did, what he did.
Right.
We'll see how it unfolds. But in the meantime, the theme and the sentiment. Okay, I'm going to segue into what's going on in Paterson. Do you see what's going on in Paterson now?
No.
Okay, so in Paterson, there was an article that came out today. I saw a video. I'm not going to assume or anything, like what happened exactly, but I guess they have a majority now in the council. There are some Muslim members there, and they captured a majority of the council, and they held some sort of Islamic themed conference in front of the cameras, in front of the news, all that stuff. And basically, it seems that they're very happy. And the mayor was up there, and he was praising the Islamic community in Paterson. Obviously, there's a large Islamic community there. And I don't have a problem with people celebrating their culture. Right. People celebrate Christmas here. There are many townships, they hold events for the holidays, whether it's Christmas or... Was this a
Muslim celebration of Ramadan? Is that what was going on?
I believe that, that it was. But this is where it troubled me, okay? When you start raising Islamic flags on government buildings, when you start speaking about Sharia law, and you start speaking about, okay, now that we have a majority, now we're going to be able to influence, we're going to be able to push, Islam on the population. And they basically proclaimed it, now it's, they have a street there, Palestine Way or whatever it is. Now this is the Palestine of America. Paterson is now the Palestine of America.
Did not see that.
No,
I did not see that. I'm running in 39. I should get out more.
Well, it's it's right around the corner.
Yeah, no, I know it's whatever, Southeast Bergen County, and look, it's in Passaic County. Passaic County is right next to Mawa, but I didn't see that. I think it falls under almost the same umbrella as people should be able to celebrate.
Like I said, I don't have a problem with people celebrating.
No, I'm there.
I don't like the mix up of the church and state, or in this case, I would say like church and mosque. Yeah, you understand where I'm coming from?
No, I got you. I'm not as up to speed on that situation. Okay. So I can't really speak to it. But
just to put my 2 cents there, I would like to see people just celebrating America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Look, I want to see people celebrating Americanism.
Right. Look, I'm a fan of, I love the Feast of San Gennaro. I love celebrating cultures.
That's different.
Within, I agree, it's different. And I don't know the situation. I'll take a look at it and see what it was. But I'm an America First guy. I get it. But cultures within the umbrella or under the umbrella of this is America, coolest thing. Like
that's why
greatest experiment that worked.
The one flag policy. Like Trump has the one flag policy,
right.
and I think he, just like in the schools, he's going to pull the federal funding if you don't have like a one flag policy.
Right.
That's how we got the pride flag down there, the BLM, like all this.
Right.
Because the schools were becoming a dumping ground for activism.
Right. Well, that's what it has become. It's.
But it's kind of the same thing in politics.
Yeah.
My fear, and a lot of people have this fear, and I think it's a justifiable fear when people see that there's a certain community that it doesn't share American values.
Okay.
You understand where I'm coming from?
I look in politics. Politics is crazy.
Because I feel like if you're going to serve for America, you should want to uphold and instill everything that's American and preserve American values.
Right. Well, still be. Look, I agree, but you still need to be cognizant of the communities you live in. One of the things Trump did recently is he made English the language of America. Now, some people would say, "How selfish of you!" It's not selfish.
No, you have to do it.
Yeah,
you have to do it. And on the flip side, I supported in our school board. We voted because the Muslim community came in and they said, "Hey, you guys are getting off on Christmas. Like we'd like to get off on Eid." I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
No, so like I don't want people to get mixed up where I'm coming from.
I'm there.
You understand? I'm saying there has to be a separation.
Yeah. And Mahwah, where I'm from, has one of the largest growing Muslim populations in all of Bergen County. And last week I was at an event, a crescent lighting or a Ramadan event. I don't remember. And 2 years ago, maybe there were 15 people there. There were probably 80 people there, 90 people. And it was a smaller event because it was that 20-degree day.
When was it?
Oh God, it was one day last week.
No,
I don't
matter.
remember. Yeah. I mean, it was
it
recent.
was recent. Yeah. Okay.
But these growing communities want to celebrate. The lunches that the Mahwah schools are serving now. Conform to those laws. So it's like you said, it's
halal means meals. Halal?
Yeah, halal.
Yeah.
But that's sensitivity, Mahwah sensitivity to a culture.
Right.
But I agree with you. I look, if this became, hey, this is what we want, and it moved away from, what was a cultural shift or a cultural desire of what they want, then I'm sure there would be some understanding. Is it cost prohibitive? What can you celebrate in a town? How many things can you celebrate?
That was another thing that we had to deal with. Okay, because like a lot of people were questioning, well, what's going to be the repercussion of that? Okay, if we accept Eid as another day off, and you got to do it. It's a major holiday for them. You got to do it.
Sure.
But then, like, are you going to do it for Kwanzaa? Are you going to do it for this? Are you going to do it for that? And look, it's got to be based on the population because you only have a certain number of days that the kids can actually go to school, mandated by the state.
When I was running for Congress, and I would put an event out. It's whether it was a fundraiser or a meet and greet or something like this, invariably it would violate some. And I would have, Fairlawn was in my district. Fairlawn has a very large Jewish population. I would get a call from somebody in Fairlawn saying, "Are you kidding having this on this day or having it on a Saturday when, the Orthodox community?" So you come to understand that you can't please all the people, but you have to understand, know the room, know your customer, know your voters. And be sensitive to that. We're having an event, and this is not a plug, but we're having
plug it.
A Republican club event in Bergen County. And it was, Mahwah, Franklin Lakes, and Wyckoff started this Northwest Bergen County Republican Club event. We got all the clubs together. Okay. Clubs are now becoming far more powerful than county committee. So we did it, and we did it last year, and it was wildly successful. And a couple of people who came there said to me, "You really should have a kosher meal here." And I'm like,
"Oh my God, are you kidding?
Why not?" No, you know what? Why not? And this year we have a kosher caterer. You know, we have to let them know who's coming, and people would ask for it. It's a tiny little give for sensitivity too. It's not.
It was a Mawa resident?
Oh, no.
Who was there? Mawa?
Well, no, it was only the three of us who put it up. There were 150 people there from 21 towns.
From 21 towns.
21 different towns.
Was Fairlawn there? Like who's
Fairlawn was there.
Okay.
So we had 21 towns. You know, I
was like, who's the Jew asking for the kosher?
You know what?
Does it come with gefilte fish, Frank?
No, this is something that, you know, if they've got a certain policy, a certain rule,
mm-hmm.
and it's no skin off my teeth, it's incumbent upon me, not just as a politician running for office. If I had the Orthodox community come over to my house for sit down for a meet and greet, and I didn't at least come to understand what they're going to.
Sure.
So it was not a big deal. It really wasn't. And the place that we had it provided for it.
I know. I'm just poking.
No. I know, but it was just. But you know what? I learned more from my voters, just like I learned from my customers.
Mm.
And too many politicians talk too much, as my wife says I do, and they don't listen enough.
Mm.
And the job I was running for is you're supposed to listen to your community. And then you're supposed to vote in Trenton consistent with what you hear in your community. So that's really, you know, where it is. I'm very sensitive to people saying, this is what I want. This is what I need. Same thing during the financial crisis. We knew what people needed.
I agree with you.
Uh-huh.
And what I'm going to say, this isn't pushback against what you're saying. This is actually something else. I'm just going to go back to Americanism again. It's like when you're running, you're trying to serve the country. I think a lot of people forget that it's not about them. And some people or some groups of people just feel like maybe they're getting slighted. They want like a little more of a voice in the community.
Right.
We want to be respected. We want to be heard and like this and that. So whether it's Islam or whether it's the Jews with the gefilte fish meal or whatever, or whether it's the LGBT.
You got to teach me more about what I should be eating, just so you know.
Or whether it's the LGBTQ.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't about, like, for me, this isn't about, you know, exploiting one group or being biased against anybody.
Right.
This is more about just promoting America and American values. And like, we know that, you know, some people, they want the attention or they don't feel like they're being treated fairly.
Yeah.
Or
this was definitely not the case.
Or racist against that. And they use it as the excuse to like, just to get what they want. And sometimes you just got to push back.
Look, and that happens. This was not the case. And they weren't jumping up and down. In fact, I think it was 3 or 4 days later. And it didn't dawn on me. So it wasn't like they turned around and walked out. It wasn't like they said, "How dare you?" This was
I didn't think
food.
that. I was just saying for the audience, like in general.
Oh yeah.
In general,
yeah.
I think people really need to understand that. You know, it's like your group isn't special.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't like it when I see certain groups going out there and they peddle their grievance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm there with you. I'm there with you.
It's like snake oil salesman. I don't like it. I don't like it. And it's divisive. Mm-hmm. And then people fold because they want to appease. And now we've just chipped away at, you know, the fabric of the country. You know, I don't like that.
Yeah. In the last year, we've seen where that line is. You know, for the prior 4 years under the Biden administration, you didn't know where the line was. The line changed every day. And it was based on what the president or his administration or whatever Biden decided he wanted to say or do. Who's crying the loudest, who's bitching the most, gets the most attention. Trump's not like that. And I think most Americans are like that. They can deal with it. My son, who has, you know, terrible allergies, he walks in and he sees, you know, peanuts on a bowl. He's not going to walk out. He's just not going to have the peanuts in the bowl.
Right.
So it's you know, he grew up in a house where, you know, he understood. We got it. We provided for it. Where I grew up in the 60s, you're going to eat it. You're going to like it.
Right.
But Dad, I'm allergic to peanuts. It'll put hair on your chest. Have some peanuts.
You know, when I was a kid, I was allergic to chocolate.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Is that the worst thing to be allergic to as a kid?
Still now or no?
No.
Oh, okay. Good.
I built up an immunity. Okay. You ever watch The Princess Bride? You just take a little. That's what I did. I would get headaches. I would throw up. But like eventually, you know, I got over it. Oh, it's so good. My oldest son, the way we found out, quick sidebar, that he was allergic to peanuts, I was in my kitchen, he was 2.
And it was the winter. I think there was, 47 feet of snow on the ground. It was one of those crazy winters, 96 maybe, 95, I don't remember. And, on Wall Street, you get gifts from brokers, and we had a huge basket that I brought home. And I love cashews. And my wife and I are just chowing down on cashews, and my little son, Dan, comes in, and we give him a cashew. And he goes into the living room, and he comes back, and his face is red. He can't breathe.
Oh my God.
And his eyes are exploding. And I thought he was choking on the cashew. So we're looking at it, and it wasn't a choking situation, but he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And we didn't know, so we called 911. And we don't know, and we were freaking out. And, and we're talking to somebody, and there's, like I said, there's literally 2 feet of snow. They can't get an ambulance to us. And we are absolutely beside ourselves. We don't know what's going on.
How old was he again?
He was about 2.
Oh my God.
And the woman on the phone, 911, said, does he have any allergies? And I'm like, I have no idea. She said, do you have any Benadryl in the house? Now, we had Benadryl that I think I brought in from my house from Queens that might have been from the Civil War. And she said, give him Benadryl. She said it sounded like he was in anaphylactic shock. Yeah. So we gave him Benadryl, and in less than a minute, he was fine.
He was okay.
And we brought him, and we tested him, and he was off the charts for everything from legumes and cashews and peanuts, and that's how we learned it. But God. So there's the sensitivity to that, but someone tells me they don't like sausage and pepper, they'd rather have veal parmesan. I tell them to go pound sand.
I was on the plane once. And I'm really allergic to cats. I never expected it, but I almost lost my eye on the plane because of the flight. I knew that there was a cat there.
Uh-huh.
There had to be a cat. Wow. And my eyes started blowing up. I started looking like Rocky Balboa at the end of the fight. And the stewardess is like, who's got a cat on the plane? Who's got a cat? They moved me to first class. They put the cat. They
moved you to first class?
They moved me to first to go there. And then, whoever they found with the cat, they moved into the back of the plane or like whatever.
Oh, there really was a cat?
There really was a cat. There was a cat on the plane.
Nicely done.
They gave me the Benadryl and the antihistamine or whatever. I almost lost my eye. So I go to the allergist when I get back from my vacation because, man, you don't want that to happen again, right? They gave me
that's a wake-up call.
They gave me the scratch test, and I got 2 rows of scratches and bubbles, here and that. And then there's this one big bubble on my arm. And she looks at me, she's like, oh, holy shit. I'm like, what is that? What am I allergic to? She goes, peanuts. I'm like, peanuts? I live on peanuts. I'm like, I got like honey roasted cashews and
I'm
peanuts
with you,
and
yeah.
planters all over. I eat peanut butter all the time. Yeah, she goes, that's what you're allergic to the most. I'm like, no, it's chocolate. We were just talking about it. And she goes, no, it's peanuts. I'm like, well,
what does she know?
What about the cats? Anyway, moving on. So, all right. Let's talk about you now.
Yes.
Talk about everything else under the sun. Let's talk about you. So I did want to ask you, so you decided that you're going to run for assembly. Mm-hmm. When did you announce that?
I announced an exploratory committee in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to run for assembly. I'm just curious. You ran against Josh. I know it was unsuccessful, but you did run a really good campaign. Yeah. I was very impressed with you when I saw you debate him. Also, I thought you squashed him.
Yeah, I think we did.
And it's too bad nobody saw that because I think if more people saw that, then you would have had a much better chance.
The League of Women Voters did that by design. You were not allowed to record. The League of Women Voters, because the marketing strategy around that is, when you're Josh or whoever, you're in the lead, you only have downside. The math is you only have downside if you say something silly.
So then don't debate.
Well, you can't not debate because then you're beat up for not debating. So you debate, but they give you the rules and you can't use clips.
Who's that?
The League of Women Voters who ran it, who is a tiny left-leaning organization. I don't know if you know them.
No.
But you weren't allowed to use clips. And it was a 2-hour debate, as you remember.
So why'd you agree to it like that? Why couldn't you just do it somewhere else?
It's there because Josh wouldn't agree to another debate anywhere else except the League of Women Voters.
How many debates were there? There was only the one, right?
We presented 3 other debate options to him. He said no to all.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Three other debate options. You didn't do them.
No. Three other separate options to debate. And the only one that he agreed, and we threw it out there. And
but
he
there was only
agreed to
one
lead.
debate as well.
There was only one debate. Yeah.
So there were 3 options. He rejected 2 of them. He agreed to
No,
one.
there were 3 separate debates on the table, not options, that were on the table, and he only agreed to one.
Okay.
And look, the rule is when you're in the lead, you don't debate. When you're in the lead in the polls, that's the rule. Like that's the standard convention because you only have downside. Right. It's one of the reasons Biden didn't campaign in 2020 and in 2020. He never went out there. And when he finally came out this second time around to debate, we can say he shit the bed because he only had downside. And
or literally. Maybe that's
both.
what was,
but that's what happened. He went out and debated, and that's when everybody woke up and said, holy cow, if they didn't have that debate and he didn't drop out, I still think Trump would have won because everything else was moving in his direction. Wrong. But it was a blink.
Like I said, I think it went the last time. I think it was the 3rd time. I am.
Here you go.
I'm one of those guys.
I know. But then he wouldn't have won this time.
I know. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Like I said, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Okay. But like I said, I thought you floored him in the debate. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a really good debate. You performed very well. Mm-hmm. Like I said, again, it's too bad people didn't see it. But he's not running again, right? From what I understand, he's
in 2026.
He's going to seek out the.
That seems to. Well, he's right now. He can keep his position and he can run because you can run separate. You can't run at the same time, but he doesn't have to give up his seat to run for governor.
Right, but he is. I believe he announced, and he is running for governor.
He is running for governor, but he can still keep his seat. Like Mikey Sherrill is running for governor, she can still keep her seat in Congressional District 11. If he runs, gets to the primary and wins, then obviously you can't hold both positions. He would then resign his position in Congress and he would take on the role of governor if he won.
But it seems like there's a chink in the armor if his focus is on the governor's race. I almost feel like maybe there's a chink in the armor. Why not go for Congress again and challenge him again?
Me?
Why go for assemblyman? That was the question. I got you. I wanted to know why.
Yeah, here's the thing. The higher you go up, and this is kind of the math I look at when I look at running for, and I think everybody should look at running for council, school board, mayor, county races, legislative, Congress, and president, governor and president. The higher up you go, Scott, for any race that you want to run, meaning the more people you're going to legislate or you're going to lead, you don't just need organization within your campaign. You need organization within the organization. And Bergen County leadership, the organization within Bergen County, they haven't won a county race in Bergen County in 13 years. 13 years. Our race that we run, you're supposed to have help from the county. You're supposed to have help from within. And together, for example, it's up to me as a candidate to put together the right message, to market that message, to raise money. In my opinion, it's up to the county itself, not to fund my campaign. Get out the vote. Vote by mail. Put together rallies. And I had the advantage, Scott, when I ran my first race in CD5 in 2020. I ran across 4 counties, Bergen, Passaic, Sussex, and Warren. And I got to see the operations of all 4 and how they do what they do. Peter Murphy, who runs Passaic County, he runs a machine there. They raise money. They invest their money. They don't donate. They invest their money properly in the candidates. I would go to Passaic County and I would drive through and there would be Pallotta for Congress signs up and down that I didn't buy. I went and I marched in a parade and I was on a float when we initially started and big Pallotta for Congress signs on the float. That's the organization. The organization, when the organization does their job and the candidate does their job and the backdrop of the voters is such that you can win. There's certain D+30 districts that you're not going to win anything. We were not a D+30. I lost that 2020 race by about 6 points. The closest race, except for Tom Kaine, in the entire state, against a machine, a money-raising machine, because we had great organization within our campaign. As you said, our training, everything was there. We had the right staff, but we didn't have organizational structure. And without organizational structure, you go to a town and you try and do a vote by mail drive, or you talk about a vote by mail drive. Nobody's there. Nobody shows up. Nothing goes on.
I thought you just said in those counties like Warren and Passaic that, it was looking good. You see signs out there. You see.
Oh yeah, no, in those counties it was great.
So where are you talking about where it was lacking?
Specific. I'm sorry, Bergen County.
You're talking about Bergen.
Bergen County.
Okay. So in Bergen, from what I understand, we lost just recently. We lost by 22,000 votes.
In what race?
I believe in this past election. No, not the congressional. In this past election for president and everything down the line. Mm-hmm. Okay. We lost by 22,000 votes.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be for like a population of almost 900 plus, almost a million people.
Right.
I think we should have been able to cover that.
Yeah. It was, look, Trump won Passaic County, which
if
is
he
a
could
Democrat
win
stronghold.
Passaic County with Patterson.
That's exactly right. How do we not win Bergen?
Then how do you not win Bergen?
Look,
because Jack also, I believe like Jack was this close.
Yeah.
And when I was watching that race, I felt like, oh, here comes the magic ballot bus, because they called it at 100% on TV.
Yeah.
And me and my friends, we were like jumping up and down. We thought that we won Bergen. And then, oh no, here comes the magic ballot bus. We made a mistake.
Yeah.
And they corrected another 4% or
here's
whatever
the deal
it
with
was.
Bergen. The other thing we talked about, Scott, which is important, is without organization at the county level, without organization, and it's not an insignificant statistic to know that we haven't won a county race in 13 years, 40 races. Now, there's 11 county seats, from the commissioners to the sheriff to the surrogate county executive. There's 11 seats. So you would say, well, they're all held by Democrats. It must be a Democrat county. It's not. In Bergen County, we have more Republican mayors and council than Democrat mayors and council by a pretty substantial margin. So what does that tell you? The people who run locally know how to look their voters, their constituents in the eye. The voters in Bergen County at the town level in Democrat towns, Dan Pronti in North Arlington, Carlos Rendell, Mike Casale, those are Democrat-controlled towns. And what I mean Democrat-controlled, there's more Democrats than Republicans.
Right.
Yet they have Republican mayors.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, like in North Arlington with Dan Pronti, we have all Republican mayors and all council. Why is that? Because they run a local race. It's easy to run a county local race if county leadership can figure out, geez, if in this district we have all these Republicans that vote at the local level, why can't we get those Republicans to vote at the county level? So it's about leadership, which I think, and I've battled with Bergen County leadership for years. You know the stories there. I think leadership is terrible. Like I like the people who run there. We can go out and we have a beer. But when it comes to running the organization, like you said, the math is there. How do you elect, 70% or 60% of your mayors and council Republicans, but 0% at the county level? We haven't flipped a legislative seat from Democrat to Republican in 25 years in Bergen County. At some point, the Boston Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs didn't win for 76 and 88 years or 96. And you change, you look at the playbook and you figure out it wasn't until, the owner of the Red Sox, who came from our background, looked at it and said, okay, you need to look at the numbers. You need to look at the analysis. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over. And I sat with Bergen County leadership and tried to explain to them before I entered the race, hey, look, this is how, I think when I wasn't running, I actually helped candidates in other races win. And I've got a pretty good record of being, I wouldn't say a campaign manager, but assisting other candidates. And I've won helping run campaigns off the line. Danielle Feedy, I helped, who's a magnificent Republican mayor in Bogota. And we helped run that campaign with my team. 3-1 Democrat over Republican. Danielle Feedy won. Because you find the right message. Great. Yeah, you market the right message. In Franklin Lakes, right here. You remember Gail Kelly.
Yeah.
Gail Kelly. Gail Kelly was tossed off the organizational line by Jack Zisa. Or by whatever process, she didn't get the line. Now, Gail. Gail has held every job in legislation. She's been on every council. Mother of 9. She does all the right things. But I guess she did something that Jack didn't like. And she decided, I don't have the line, I'm not going to run. And someone said to her, when you don't get the line, you don't pull out, you talk to Pallotta. and you just see, is there an opportunity to win? And I looked at her and I looked at the backdrop of Franklin Lakes and I said, I think we can get her to win. It was actually my campaign manager, Kelly, who looked at it and said, well, and we beat the council president off the line.
No, I know.
Because we found the math.
I know Dennis.
Yeah. And look, Dennis is not a bad guy. I don't know a lot about it, but I had a mission to figure out how to get my client over the goal line.
Right.
And you look at the math and you basically say, what do we have to do? And you take the art and the science of what's your message and who you are against the backdrop of how they vote. Bergen County Republican Organization should be doing that every single day. We were red 25 years ago. Solid red up and down.
Yeah. What was his name? Scott Gant? No, Scott Garrett.
Scott Garrett.
Right.
Yeah. But all across the county, we were we had all the county seats, and they decided to the Democrats took a step back and say, how do we take over Bergen County? They had a long-term plan, and they took town by town, council by council, and they did it. And one of the other reasons, and we can get into this a little more about jumping into 39, I looked at the race in Congressional District 5 when Scott Garrett was running it. Mm-hmm. And Scott Garrett used to win, going back, a little more than a decade by 20, 25 points. It was a good, solid Republican district.
It was a stronghold.
It was a stronghold. And the year before he lost to Josh Gottheimer, or the cycle before he lost, he had won the Congressional District by 11 points, give or take. You would think 11 points is good, solid the next time around. I noticed he wasn't coming out as much as he should have in those 2 years.
He probably thought he just had it in the bag.
He dialed it in. And,
he got complacent.
And he got complacent. So he went from winning by 11 to losing by 3. A 14-point swing in 24 months.
Yeah, that's all.
Keep that in mind. He won by 11 and then he lost. You want to know how much we won Legislative District 39 2 years ago? 6.5 points. The District 39 is in danger of being lost. And I went there and I spoke to the Bergen County Republican Organization and said, you guys need to pay attention to this. The reasons I won in Franklin Lakes, the reasons I won in Bogota, the reasons I won all the races that I worked on was I studied the math, I looked at the numbers. This math in 39 is not working. You need to do something about it. And Jack DiLorenzo looked at me and said, if you try and run, we're going to get every endorsement against you. I'm going to get Holly Schapese and I'm going to get all these people to endorse against you because I think you're wrong and we're going to protect the incumbent. And I said, how do you how is it that you like what I say about how Franklin Lakes turned out and Wyckoff and all these other races that I helped, but I show you more concrete math on District 39 and I'm wrong on that? So, it's
because... who are the incumbents there? It's Auth and
John Azaridi.
John
Azaridi. And John is a freshman assemblyman. John, I helped him in his convention 2 years earlier. And John won because John fit the district. John is the guy who fit the district. Bob Auth was at the top of the ticket in 2023, and we lost 46% of our win margin versus the cycle before. 46% of our win margin. The Democrats, I am positive, are looking at that race, and they're looking that 2025 will be the first time, Scott. And Jerry Cardinale was one of the stalwarts, and Holly was in the assembly with Bob Auth. But 2025 will be the first time in 13 years that Bob Auth is running without Jerry and without Holly. And Holly won that district by 9 3/4 points, her first single-digit win in a while. And the spread between Holly, and we're getting into the math here, spread between Holly's win of 9 3/4 and Bob's win of 6 3/4 was one of the widest margins in the state for an assembly race where the Senate and the assembly person were of the same party. That's another stark reality, that if Holly wasn't on that ballot, Bob might have won by 2 or 3 points.
So when you talk this sort of math to Jack.
Yeah. What did he say?
Yeah. What's the response?
Well, first of all, the county is still 0 for 40 races. So they don't sit back and look at it. In my personal view, this is very personal to them. And they don't like me for a simple reason. I do what is in the best interest of the people that I would be elected to serve. I ran twice off the organizational line in my primaries. Twice. Twice I won off the organizational line. The organizational line has a mathematical value. In a presidential year, Scott, it's got a mathematical value of 20 points. In a non-presidential or an off year, it could be as low as 15, but it's still a substantial advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is if you and I are running for the same office and we don't campaign at all, and you have the line and I don't, you're going to win by 15 points.
Right.
So when I said to them, there's no line, like they knew there's no line, but that hurts them more than anyone else because the line is power to them. But when I said to Jack DiLorenzo, this is what I think you need to do, and this is the issue, and this is the problem, he just kept coming back with, we're going to protect the incumbent. You're not going to run. You're not. Now, I know it was personal because I beat the line, and in 43 years, the organizational line, twice, 43 years, the organizational line at that level was only beat 3 times. Once by Kristen Corrado and twice by me. They don't like that. They like to have the power to say, we're going to be the kingmaker. And so we ended it with, well, Frank, this was the excuse, we're going to protect the incumbent. And I looked at him and said, your job is not to protect the incumbent.
Right.
Your job is to preserve the incumbency. That's the difference, and they don't understand it, and that's why we don't win.
So you primary 2 people in 2 separate elections.
Right.
After you win, now you're saying that because you did that, it gets personal and you lose their support for...
Well, the good and the bad news is
yes?
They can't help and they can't hurt. No, look, when I ran in the primary, my personal view, they play checkers and I play chess. When I run in the general, I play chess and the Democrats are master chess players. So they can't help and they can't hurt, but their lack of organization makes it more difficult for me to run. But you know how many calls I got from Jack?
But do you lose funding?
No, they're first of all, the organization doesn't have money. They never had money. But when I run, it's up to me to raise the money. It's not up to them. It's up to me. It's my job. And the NRCC was good to me. They donated money. I had people on Wall Street who were good. I did the work I had to do to raise the money because part of my job for 25 years was how do you raise money for funds? How do you talk about it? And the way you raise money for people to invest in your fund is you show them a path to victory. I showed people a path to victory. And
so let's rewind and go back to what you were talking about, the line being an advantage because you get the support from the county committees
in the primary. Yeah.
So let's show people the ballot.
Sure.
And you could talk to everybody and just explain to everybody how the new ballot is different versus the old ballot.
Sure. Well, everybody knows the old ballot was simple. It was a column.
I'm just going to show people this, but we're going to put it up on the screen for everybody.
Sure. That's what the new ballot is going to look like. That's the Sussex County ballot. Sussex County has never had an organizational line. And it's one of the blessings in disguise for me is when I ran my first race, I ran in Bergen, Passaic, Warren, and Sussex. Sussex is a good, strong Republican
But explain it so people understand, because most people...
You mean the line?
Right. See, most people, when they vote, they're just voting for president. There's a lot less interest in the down
ballots.
Yeah.
Which is why the line is very valuable.
Right. So explain the line to our listeners.
People open up their ballot. Let's talk about primary ballots. Okay. If you're a Republican, you open up a primary ballot. Everybody on that ballot is a Republican. All the people running for Congress, for Senate, everybody's a Republican. But what you look at, the name with the biggest cachet is the president, or the Senate, or the governor, depending on what cycle you're in. So most voters will open up their ballot and they look at the primary ballot the same way they look at their general ballot. General ballot only has Republicans in one column, only Democrats in the other. The Republican ballot in a primary, you might have 5 columns with scattered Republicans everywhere. But you look for the line, and this is a psychological marketing thing, you look for the line where your guy that's underneath is underneath the president. And that's what the organization, the power of the organization has, is they say, we'll give you the line, but you have to do A, B, and C for us. And the line is valuable because President Trump is on it. At the time, this was 2020.
Right. And everyone's going to vote for him and everyone under him.
Right. So when they say they vote right down the line, that's what happened. So when I ran in 2020, I was in column 5. I was almost alone in column 5. Column 1 with President Trump was chock full of candidates.
That sucks.
It does suck, but I won. I won the race because I taught people what I represented, and I taught the voter, if you believe in me, this is where you find me. And that's the marketing side that no one in the organization in Bergen County understands. They, I call it a pacifier, the training wheels of the organizational line. And unfortunately, there are candidates that don't know how to run a general because the only campaigning they do is to get the organization to help them win the line. And when you win the line, you win the primary, you're the candidate. And what has happened the last 13 years? Goose egg. We haven't won anything.
So the new ballot,
no
line.
It's called a block ballot. And this is, and we'll show it on the screen, but basically the block ballot says, who is my Senate candidate? You're not looking this way. You're looking at a number of different boxes. My Senate candidate is Frank, Scott, Bob, Bill, and Joe. And then you pick the one.
You just bubble it in.
You bubble it in. But here's what it is. It's name recognition.
Right.
You know what? Scott spoke in my church. Scott said this. I got a mailer from Scott. Right. Scott always talks. He talks to the Boy Scout troop. So it becomes name recognition.
There's still somebody in the first position here, because you have to. Well, you have to list them out, but they're not under the president. They're not under the top of the ticket. It's
exactly
not one line.
It's not one line.
And then all the other candidates to the side.
Right. And you're not sitting alone in an orphan
line. There's
line.
no advantage.
There's no, and literally there is no advantage. And we'll see when we show this up. This is I'm on this ballot from 2020. Mm-hmm. And if you see, I'm the third person on that because it's got to be in some order.
Right.
It's not, you can't go left to right because people read left to right. So you can't put them in a line, one on top of the other. There was a question, well, is the guy on top, does he have an advantage? Well, I was number 3 in this top to bottom, and I finished first in Sussex County by 20 points in Sussex County. And they weren't supposed to like me in Sussex County. When I first started campaigning, Scott, I was the Italian guy who worked on Wall Street, grew up in New York, and lived in Bergen County. I was 0 for 4. And my campaign manager, who was from Sussex, told me, you got to sell these guys. And I started to understand the idea of a line. And I started to understand how ridiculous it was in Bergen and how fundamentally sound it was in Sussex County. You got to look somebody in the eye. I never took for granted that I worked at Goldman Sachs when I went to visit a customer. I could have said, hey, I work at Goldman and Goldman is big. And I never did that. Right. I was the guy taking the red eye to make sure that people knew that the guy from Goldman was going to go visit them in Tupelo, Mississippi about something.
So now, this election, you're not at a disadvantage.
We're not at a disadvantage in the primary.
Okay. So it's to your benefit. You're out there, you're campaigning, you're talking to people.
Right.
It's more like grassroots and local activists.
It's exactly that's the word,
right?
It's
because
grassroots.
You don't have really the backing of the.
You don't need the backing of the. Now, that being said, Scott, Passaic County also will not have a line, but Passaic County's operation is sound. So Passaic County,
I got you.
If they like Scott Loia, Scott's going to be the guy.
Right. I got you. I got you. So now that you're out there, you're campaigning, you're talking to people. What are some of the main issues? Like if you had to pick the number one issue around here, for District 39.
Right. The economy, hands down.
Just the economy.
Hands down. Well, there's subcategories. Is it property taxes? Is it inflation? It's the economy. It's pocketbook politics. And that's what it is. And that's the number one issue. As you move to different towns, there's 28 towns in Bergen County.
Of an effect can assemblymen have for economy?
You know what? A lot, depending on what you want to solve for. For example, small businesses are the backbone of this state. You could make things easier for small businesses. You can shorten the timeline for approvals. You can cut the red tape for them. You don't need legislation to do that. When I've gone out and I've seen Bob Oth campaign in different places, and he gets up at the microphone, he talks about we have to get Republicans nominated and elected in District 39. We're in the minority. We can't get anything done. That's bull. There's a lot of legislation that can go through if you can figure out, 1, how to come up with decent legislation, 2, how to sell across the aisle that this is better for everyone. And that's something that I've done this my entire life. I did as well as I did in my profession because I didn't care race, creed, color, party. It didn't matter to me. I just made sure that when I was able to when I had a good transaction, when I had something that I thought my customers should understand, I was able to explain it to them the right way. And I was able to bring it back to my trading desk and say, look, this might not be the best transaction for you now, but my customer needs it. And if you can help them get over this hurdle, we're going to be better in the long run. So Bob Oth has been in the assembly for 11 years. he has primary sponsored exactly 0 bills. Under that, if we don't have the assembly, we can't get anything done. It's crap. You can get a lot done if you can figure out how to work across the aisle. And that's one of the reasons that I'm tired of hearing that. We're down 13 seats. We're not going to get 13 seats this year. We may get it 2 years. Jack Ciattarelli, if he's the candidate, helped secure 6 seats in 2021. And in 2023, when Bob was running, we lost those 6 seats like that.
Are you supporting Jack?
You know what? I like all these guys. Mario Kranjak is a friend of mine. Jack Ciattarelli, when I first started campaigning in 2019, he was everywhere. And he wasn't running for another 2 years. I like Jack's resume. Bill Spadia, I've worked with him. You know, John Bramnick, not a fan of. John Bramnick, I think, is the guy who says what he thinks he needs to say to get what he thinks will be the majority to vote for him. And Bob Oth is supporting John Bramnick, who voted for the Freedom to Read bill. John Bramnick, I think he was a co-sponsor for that bill, or it might have been the primary co-sponsor.
You want to explain to our audience what that is?
Oh
I know.
Do you have another hour and a half that we can go through this?
But let's shorten it because we're almost at the end anyway. But
yeah.
it is a good topic to touch on,
sure.
Especially regarding parental rights.
Sure,
go for it.
Yeah, look, the Freedom to Read Act or bill, my opinion is misnamed. It's not. You know, it does 2 things. And when you talk about what the left says it does and what the right says it does, you can see the difference. You can see what they're pointing to as why one side likes it and one doesn't. The left will say, well, it just allows us to have very diverse readings in the school.
Right.
And it holds harmless our librarians from being sued by crazy wackos. That's the left's argument. The right argument, which I'm a little more in tune with, not just because I'm a Republican, is I know the stuff they put in schools. Is it in every school? No. We've got good people on the Board of Ed in Mahwah, for example, where you don't see it. I know. I've sat with Kristen Cabo. I've sat with Alex Bauer, and I know what's going on. And when you allow the librarian or whatever the organization to put what they believe should be in the school, you're doing exactly what Terry McAuliffe said when Youngkin won the governor's race in 21. We need to take our parents out of the school. When Terry McAuliffe said that, the polls in Virginia in 2021 moved 5 points in 72 hours. So, this is an issue that is a big, big deal right now. And I think, look, I want my kids to see and do very diverse things. I want them to understand. But at a certain age, I don't want them exposed to that. And if you're leaving it up to the school, you're leaving it up to the librarian, and you're taking the parent out of it, my kids are 29 and 31, you're taking the parent out of it, you're tying my hands. And then when you hold harmless someone who basically might say, I don't care what they say, I'm going to put what I want in the school. And by the way, now I'm not going to get sued. Thank you very much, John Bramnick. And thank you, Bob Oth, for supporting John Bramnick.
It's a very sticky situation.
It is.
I'll tell you, because I read the bill. There are good people and there are bad people in our schools.
Yeah.
I like to believe more good than there are bad, but there are bad.
There are
bad
more
apples.
good than bad.
The thing is that the schools have been inundated with this crap.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it, especially now from the alphabet gang.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of that crap in the library, banners, school dressings, everything, from teachers wearing pins or whatever. There's too much of that stuff. Yeah. They're sexualizing the kids. Yep. It really is kind of disgusting. On the flip side, there are staff members that they don't want any part of that. There are librarians that, maybe they're new. How are you supposed to go through the million books that are already there and, purge what's there? So if somebody finds something, then the librarian is, so it's kind of a balancing act. I'm actually okay with librarians not being liable. Mm-hmm. Okay, because there has to be protection for those that really are guilty of anything.
Doing it right.
That's tough. But in the same token, there has to be a purge. and it has to come down from the board and the superintendent and the building principals. And, we've been very active with that. We've been trying to get that shit. That's what it is. It's just shit. You got to get it out of the schools because it's inappropriate. Yeah. It's completely inappropriate. I've told this story 1,000 times. I know people have heard it, but when I first came onto the board, one of my bugaboos was on the front of each school building was a sign. It said, we accept, and then it didn't say everybody. It wasn't like a general message. They went through the multicultural checkbox list. Okay, we accept all genders, all races, all, affectional, what was it? Affectional orientation. I'm like, affectional orientation? What the fuck is that? What is that? Yeah. I'm like, you're substituting affectional for sexual. These are like conversation starters that kids aren't supposed to be having with their teachers. Yeah. I mean, not even their parents. Parents don't want to have to talk to their kids about that crap at that age. First grader, second grader knows how to read. Going home and mommy and daddy, what's affectional orientation? That's a no-no. Yeah. Get that shit down. And, it took me a long time. I couldn't even, because we can't do it. Right. Then, you're talking lawsuits. It took a long time to start to get the people and the staff on board who work at the school to get them to understand there's a new sheriff in town. Right. We don't play this. Yeah.
Did they get that in Franklin Lakes?
I'm in Franklin Lakes. That's what it was. So finally we got them taken down. Okay. And, you keep pushing. There are other things like the signs, all gender bathroom. All gender bathroom. It's a bathroom. Yeah. It's a bathroom. Yeah. Okay.
Well, look, that
bathroom. You don't even have to say men's, women's. Okay. If it's offensive to you, just bathroom. Yeah. What is it? All gender bathroom crap.
Yeah. Not my kids. Okay. I have 2 boys. Yeah. There's no way if I had a daughter that I would. Men and women's sports, not going to happen. Men who want to run into whatever bathroom they want. You don't. This is the common sense thing we talked about earlier. Yeah. I'm sorry. Wait for the bathroom to clear out if you want to go in there. You're not coming into the ladies' room where my daughter might be in there. And that's common sense stuff. It's something that 20 years ago, Republicans and Democrats would look at each other and go, are you kidding? Of course not.
This wouldn't have been an issue 50 years ago.
Exactly. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It all started with the hanging chads. Once we had the hanging chads, we went south from there.
But anyway, going back to the Freedom to Read Act, the stuff has to be purged from the libraries. Right. But that takes a lot of parental pushback on the schools, and people they have to be engaged. Yeah. They have to be engaged.
And you've got to bring people on the board. Like you're on the board of ed. I think a lot, like I said, Mawa has got Republicans and Democrats on the school board. But the one common link, the one common thing they have is kids first. Yeah. Kids first, and they make decisions in the best interest of the kids. Now, I don't know other towns. I don't really get embedded in other school boards. You're starting to see a little more activity going on there because, that's kind of where it all begins. But look, I agree. We talked earlier, about common sense. And, I like when someone asks me a question about where I stand on a position, and they ask me first whether I'm Republican or Democrat, I almost don't want to answer because it doesn't matter what you say. If they're a Democrat and you're asked, what do you think of such and such, it's going to get skewed. Right. One of the first times I went to Ridgewood, which is a nice Democrat stronghold, when I was running in CD5 in 2020, and a girl, like she was barely out of college, and my campaign manager said to me, "Oh, Shay would like to talk to you. She has a few questions." And I spoke at an outdoor rally. The rally was over. And she said, "Frank, she goes, I'm a gay woman and I just want to ask you a few questions." Didn't tell me your party. And she said, "What do you think of same-sex marriage?" I said, "If you want the same misery that a heterosexual couple has, be my guest." And then she asked me my question on what I think about alternative energy. And the response I gave her was, my retirement account doesn't have one stock in it. My retirement account is diversified. If you're looking at how we should go forward, 100 years ago, nobody would have moved away from kerosene and horse-drawn carriages. When the technology comes to a point and the cost comes to a point where it makes sense to look at alternative energies, we are eventually going to run out of oil. Like as it might be 10 years, it might be 10,000 years, we're going to run out. We're not going to run out of the sun. We're not going to run out of wind. So if you look at all your alternative energies like a portfolio of different options, and options B, C, and D are more expensive than option A, which is natural gas or coal, you're going to gravitate toward this one because it's cheaper. But as soon as you start to see this makes more sense, whether you feel in your heart that you want to be better with the environment, whatever the case is, you're going to see a shift. Like you saw the shift from kerosene to electricity, from horse-drawn carriages. So that's right. And she said to me, when she came to my office a week later and told me she changed parties, because of her conversation with me.
Just because of that?
Because of the conversation with me.
The conversation about renewable energy.
And she basically was told in Ridgewood, you can't reason with a Republican. That's what she was told. She was taught you can't reason, and she came away. And I hope it was my alternative. I think it was the ability to reason with her, tell her my view, and let her understand, we're all sharing this damn
Are you still
planet.
in touch with that person? That's another unicorn. I would love to get in the head of somebody
She
like
worked
that.
on my campaign that year. I love her.
Okay.
She's great. We're still in touch. She's got a big shot job now.
Excellent.
But she's great. And she's still a registered Republican.
Well, hey, we covered a lot of ground. Before we end it, because we're close to the end, is there anything you want to pitch? Like, where does Frank Pallotta stand? Like, what are you running for? You want to tell
sure.
our audience?
Look, I'm running for Assembly in Legislative District 39. I think I represent District 39 better than anyone else, who's in the race right now. Certainly better than Bob. And I think this really becomes a question of when you get there, what is your mission when you're elected? My mission is 39. And I think what I do fits exactly what 39 needs. I'm in full, and everyone will say they're in full support of veterans. They're in full support of the elderly. They're full support. But what are you doing? When your excuse every day when you talk to people are, I can't really do anything because we don't have the majority. I want a fighter. I don't want a brawler. I want a fighter. I'm a fighter. I fought the organization. I won twice when I was a candidate. When I wasn't a candidate, I helped other people fight the organization. I won 9 out of 10 races. And it's not because I'm better or smarter than everyone else. I get what the job is. I understand what the job is. So look, Pallotta for Assembly.com, FOR. If you want to take a look at it, it's going to evolve every day. We're going to come out. We're going to be a lot more active here. But in my main focus will be 39. And the thing that I also do that's different, and I got this from running in CD5 as well, which encompassed 70 towns. Well, you're supposed to do what's in the best interest of District 39. District 39 touches 38 and 37 and 40. So you need to make sure that you have the ability, Scott, to work with, irrespective of what side of the aisle you're on. You need the people around you to know. And the fact that Bob hasn't had a primary sponsored bill in 11 years, to me, speaks volumes of his ability to work, not just with the legislators, but his ability to work with the voters. When you win by 6.5 points and you're an 11-year legislator and it's a Democrat, it's a Republican legislature, it just means you're losing the interest of the people you should always have. Those are the towns that vote for Republican mayors and Republican council and Republican Board of Ed members. But you lost 46% of your win margin in those same towns. You're not appealing to them. It's a question without an organizational line. When you have a block ballot now, your block ballot's going to be who has higher name recognition. And you have high name recognition when you do what's in the best interest of the people that you were elected to serve.
All right. Great. What's the website again? Frank Pallotta for Assembly.com?
Pallotta for Assembly.com.
Pallotta for Assembly.com.
Right.
Frank, thank you very much.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Take care.